welcome everyone. I'm going to be letting folks in as they arrive. Welcome, welcome everyone. Feel free to click down below, or if on your phone, it might be a little bit different, but click down below and click the chat. Let us know where you're zooming in from, where you're joining us from in the world. And let us know what you're interested in permaculture and gardening, in farming, because we're here to talk about it all. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can raise your hand and share with your own voice. That is usually not the popular option I discovered the other day. I was like, all right, everyone, just raise your hand. And like, no one raised their hand. And that's okay. You don't have to raise your hand. It's okay. But some people are like, you didn't ask me to raise my hand. So I want to make sure I come out and say it. If you want to raise your hand, you can raise your hand. We can hear your voice. We'll be able to see you. You're included. But if you don't feel like raising your hand, which is the majority of folks, please feel free to click down below, click the chat button and put your question there. And it would help me to find your question if you put the question in all caps or just the word question in all caps in front of it. That way I can find it easily and we can move at a smooth click. Thank you so much for being here. All right. So I think we should start with introductions. This is the Our Future 2022 live gardening and permaculture panel. These are some of my favorite people with us today. These are people who inspire me. These are people who, man, if we could have this in person, these are people that I would be hanging out with. These are people that I'd be giving big hugs and I'd be listening to just as they talked and just as they shared and as they interacted with people, because these are people who I deeply value what they have to say and what they have to share and the experiences that they have. So without any further ado, do you guys want to introduce yourself? Morag first.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for hosting this event and for everyone for being here. It's really wonderful. I'm here in the morning. I know for many of you, it's not that time of the day. I've got the birds waking up. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm here on Gunakurnai land in East Gippsland in Australia and acknowledge the traditional owners. I've actually been rediscovering this place. My family's been here for like 4 generations, which seems nothing now that I've started to walk through the landscape and notice the number of scar trees and bush foods, and that this place has been since its inception, like when the island actually emerged 10,000 years ago, it's been occupied, which is not that much time in terms of Aboriginal history. But here I am on Gunakurnai land, and I'm really glad to be here with you. I normally live at a place called Crystal Waters Permaculture Village, which is about 2,000 kilometres north of me, and I'm not quite sure how to get home at the moment through the waves of COVID that are happening. But I will eventually scrabble my way back up and back to my permaculture garden, which surrounds my home. And you know what? I'm actually really not that worried about it because it's got its own life now. It's designed really well that I can go away and come back. And actually the biggest thing I need to do will be to kind of hack back its abundance and turn it back into the soil and just start to harvest again. So yeah, really lovely to be here. Thanks, Matt, for hosting this event.
Thank you. All right, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Halsey with Southwoods Ecosystems and United Designers. Really happy to be here. I'm right now in Lake Havasu, Arizona. I came here from Alabama last week. And in my mobile command center, some people call it the Roadhouse. This is my tiny home on wheels now since April of this year. So I am traveling full-time site to site, doing the design, working with United Designers all around the world, which is absolutely great. And basically making those adjustments to a more simpler life and a more compact life that I always heard about. And I get to work with tiny house people a lot too, which is a lot of fun, plus doing all the design work. So very happy to be here and really love to have these conversations. And that's the best part about traveling, like I've been doing, is just conversations of all the most important stuff. It's just really, really great meeting people, kind of like what Morag was saying earlier, meeting people on their site, in their situation, and like what I'm kind of talking about, in their truth. you know, their situation is something they have to deal with, not somebody else's idea of what they should be doing. And that's a lot of fun to deal with people with on their level, on their sites. So glad to be here. Thanks, Matt.
I love that. It sounds like you're truly living in your purpose.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's a good euphemism. But yes, actually, I'm living in my space. And I have to tell you, in a tiny house, you clean and you keep neat because you are living in your situation. So everything comes
awesome.
right back to you.
I lived in a dorm room my junior year, and I could touch both walls with my hands, and I could touch the ceiling with my other hand. It was a cell. All right, here we go. Lucian.
Hi, everyone. I just want to acknowledge first that my heart is beating very, very rapidly. So I'm so honored to be here with all of you, and just so happy to be invited to share. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. I just listened to these two people's amazing presentations today. I hope you guys watch those videos too. So I'm kind of like on cloud 9 of what's possible in the future. So I am Lucian. I'm originally from Romania. I grew up in something that at one point started to look like backwards. And here I am back to it, which is living in relationship with the land and with the people. So I am in Missouri right now. And thank you so much, Moran, for acknowledging the people whose lands you are on right now. So I'm going to also acknowledge the people's lands here of the Osage people. And so I'm in Missouri in the Ozarks, next to the Lake of the Ozarks. We have a beautiful, amazing farm that's keep on growing and growing and growing. And yeah, we came from California. There's so much more to say, but I'm looking at the time and I just want to get to answering people's questions. So yeah, super excited. Also, if you've probably seen that About and for Sustainability thing on every video, that's us also. So that's our educational business. And then we're also farmers. So thank you so much for having me here. And I look forward to, to see what's happening.
Absolutely. And I should add that you're also, you're running a full farm, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, with my own 2 hands.
Yeah. But I mean, like you're living it. A lot of people, you know, they can fit permaculture into their lot here and they can do, you know, this much. But you are taking it fully on. You're really embodying all the lessons that you're learning. And you've gone and learned from many different teachers. I just think that you really are a superb example for people to emulate and follow. So thank you for being that. All right, so I'm gonna let a couple people in, and then we're gonna start going through questions. Please let us know where you are coming in from down by clicking down in the chat. We've had a lot of people join since I welcomed you initially. So down below there's a button. You can click it and you can enter the chat. You can put all caps question and then put your question and we'll find it and we will start in on those now. All right. And if you again want to raise your hand, you may. All right.
Life took me to the hospital. It's Kaiser in Mission Valley.
Carrie, are you asking a question?
Yeah, I walked to the emergency room. Yeah. Oh shit. You're true. You know what? Yeah. See, another thing is I didn't want to give my
I'm going to
wife
just fix that.
scared,
Sorry.
you know?
Okay. Thank you. Looking for the next question. You can tell we're live, can't you? This is real.
It's organic.
It's public. All right, so our first question is, I'd like to get into design and teaching permaculture. You have some of the best people to ask your question. I already know. right here, right now. Where I live, there isn't a community for permaculture yet, but I think people would be open to it. What are the most important points you'd suggest for me to focus on? All right,
Wow.
Morag, Daniel, do you want to take it?
Sure, I'll grab that. I think that really, if you're going to do design, you have to understand what you're designing. So with our, like the United Designers design course that we do in our process and our cooperative of design, we have a lot of people that know a lot of stuff specifically, right? And so it's really knowing people that have the information that you need. That's like one of the best things, but you do have to have the rudimentary, if not the more detailed information about soil, climate, weather, plants, all of the earth sciences, super important, right, for doing that. And then as soon as you get into any kind of engineering, construction, straw bale houses, that is a whole nother thing. So you kind of have to decide what your trajectory is going to be and what you're going to design for people. And if it's gardens or food forests, it's horticulture, right? And it's irrigation and all the technology that kind of goes with that. So in the process of doing the design work, you can learn all that as you go. But I think it really makes a lot of sense to take the soils classes, the soils books, as some people have written on screen here, right? There is a lot of information to be had about the sciences to help you understand what you're actually doing. And then the process of design is supported by all that. And that's a way of organizing that information and displaying that information. So the permaculture books, Dave Jackie's books, Matt's books, right? It is reading and it's studying and understanding those things. And after that, what I would say, it's mileage and repetition. And that's what gets you fast. And that's what gets you kind of thinking over the time. So, and Morag or Lucian might have more on that.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on these questions. It's a great question. And I think it's really the task of all of us everywhere to myceliate permaculture and to activate it in our local communities, because you know, there are millions of permaculture teachers everywhere, and it's when we step up and speak up in our local communities in whatever capacity that we have. And I'd like to encourage you not to feel like you don't know enough yet to get started. You know what you know, so start there. Like, you don't need to purport to be an expert. You just need to purport to be an enthusiast and call people who are enthusiastic to join you. Now, that may be, you know, starting a garden in your own place and opening it up, maybe having a little, you could make a blog about it to open up around that, or an open day and get people to come and do seed saving or cutting or cooking or sharing or a share waste, something in your garden. It could be a simple way to start. If you don't want it in your own place, it could be something out on the verge or in a local park, a community garden or a school garden, even place to gather like-minded people. If that's not something you could do, perhaps, you know, other things that I've done over the years was starting up, I don't know, like a film club. So you could put on a permaculture film at a local hall and invite people to come along, and the people you attract will be the people who will help to start this community. And then you get to have a conversation. You don't have to be the expert because you've got the films telling the stuff. You just have to be there to be the host with the mostest, you know. And I think thinking through it like that, as an educator, you don't have to be the expert always. You have to be the kind of the catalyst in a way to create the context where conversations can happen and where community can be born. And it's that kind of process of shifting how we think about being an educator that we really kind of talk a lot about within the Permaculture Education Institute. And one of the things I think is really good about what's happening too within the communities that I'm noticing is we create this global learning community or community of practice, you know, like there's a network that's happening. And this is that global learning community where we find that inspiration to then take the ideas and sort of sprinkle the spores that can help to myceliate it further.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lucian, do you want to add?
Yeah. Just a little pitch here. I was just looking today that Matt has this really amazing thing he did last year that I just watched. Well, 2 years ago, I think, and I just watched this last year with regenerative entrepreneurs. Is you're given a really beautiful kind of like blueprint. Hey, here's kind of like how you start, and there's a lot of good things there. Also, I'm going to pitch myself. If you're going to watch my video, I talk exactly about this. How do you get started and ramp up and get to whatever, and really appreciate these two amazing people that bring this. And yeah, just do it. Really just do it. It's just so amazing. Just do it. And then, have integrity with everything that you do. That's one of my steps that I'm saying. Always, always, like Daniel was saying, just practice and keep on learning. Be authentic. That's like really, really huge. I'm a beginner. This is what I teach my students all the time. I have some of my students are better designers than myself, and incredible businesses they created. Just like being authentic and saying, I'm in the beginning. I want to do some projects. Can I mess up your garden? And that's how I done it. And I messed up a lot of gardens. So
yeah, I had, if I could, what Morag said about getting people together and just watching movies back, and I'm sorry, but it was VHS tapes of Mollison's Global Gardener. And we all just got together and watched videos, DVDs, Bill Mollison, whatever was out there. And that was our learning circle with 12 people, 30 people, 80 people. That's what brought it. And it's like, so like she was saying, we were watching the people that were making these incredible videos to get inspired and then sit around and talking. And that's what made our group, is it really helped us accelerate the process.
Yesterday in the live, we talked about compost parties. I think there's other activities that we can do with these parties. We could be watching inspirational films. This is essentially what we're doing here. We're gathering to generate more energy. Just like when we form a compost pile, we're gathering all the essential elements to generate that heat. It's actually the enzymes, it's the catalytic effect of enzymes that creates that heat. So it's our enthusiasm, I would say, what we shed around us, the energy and the change that surrounds us and comes from us. I would say that's the exuberance, the enthusiasm we bring. And I thought you guys were going to talk about your courses, because Daniel is one of the best designers. His formula for design, the way it's clean, United Designers goes into this. You want to be a designer, I highly suggest taking multiple courses, no doubt, but taking his course, because you'll come out of it knowing Adobe really well. And I'm here to tell you, Adobe is a superpower, just on its own. So my 11-year-old son the other day started using my Adobe suite and put like Jack Black's face on some muscle man, and he thought it was hilarious. I still don't know how he did it, but it's very powerful for more than jokes. But my other thing was that Morag, your teaching program is incredible. It's one of those programs that I really want to actually go and check out, because your educational experience is it's different from mine, and so I know everyone gains something from each other. I was actually talking to Ro Morrow about, I don't know if your ears were burning the other day. I was talking to Ro about you, and I and her talking about education and such, as a podcast series or something. But if you're looking for the higher education, if you're looking for teacher training, Morag has an incredible program. So I think it's is it perennial?
Yeah. Anyone can sign up at any time, and it's a spacious course that you can kind of take as long as you want. Some people are in there for as long, like for years actually, because it's, once you're part of a community, you're not part of a community. You're just there. And we have masterclasses and film clubs, design studios, education labs, and the whole point is, creating that space for those conversations to happen, to help people step up, find each other. And it's kind of what I had always wished would be after a PDC, like, where do we go from here? How do we connect? How do we continue to support each other? And I'm taking the particular focus in my work I've been doing permaculture since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I really see that the focus needs to be around enabling people, as I was mentioning before, to share it out even further. I mean, I really do see that this is something that the world needs, particularly right now. And in order to share it out, we need people who can teach other people or activate groups or catalyze programs. And, you know, so this is the focus that I take. And it's also why I run a podcast too, Sense Making and Changing World, and try and talk with, you know, like you do, Matt, too, you know, talk with people around the world and constantly open up conversations that I think connect dots, connect thinking, connect action, connect groups, and then also with the youth as well. And making sure that there's a social justice ethic. I mean, really try and embrace the third ethic of permaculture. And I don't know, you describe it slightly differently, but I still keep the fair share there because of that social justice principle, and do a lot of work also sharing it, making sure that people, you know, in refugee settlements and elsewhere have access to this as well, and can be part of this global network and catalyze what they're doing.
Awesome. My argument is that that's part of people care.
You know, and it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't, as long as we get it in there.
And the ethic of social justice and the ethic of, you know, being a planetarian, all of those things kind of woven together, however it comes naturally out of your mouth. I think this is also the beautiful thing about permaculture in so many ways, that not being dogmatic about it, but understanding the ethic and the principle of it. And we all describe it differently depending on where we are, who we're talking to. I describe it differently to the kids than I do, you know, in a context like this, or if I'm speaking in a university, it will come out of my mouth differently, but it means the same.
Absolutely. And I just want to add on the how to be authentic note. I would say that serve higher. If you want help from people like us, people in the community, I have been getting help from people like us in the community this entire time. And it's always, well, no, not the entire time. There have been things I've done that have flopped, more than a few. And what I've realized over time is that the greater the alignment is to the highest good that you can do. And that's like holistic, right? All the different overlaps. The more authentic it forces you to become as you convey what you're actually trying to do. And you know, and so it has this, it reveals that, but then it also calls it out in other people. And then people really want to absolutely see that happen and help you make it happen, because they know that it's going to help people. So that's what I would say is the key there. All right. So this next question is something I've not heard about before, because it says, how can we use static water? And then the next question reveals an edge to this. I was thinking static, like still. How can we create more static charge in our water without electric eels? Has anyone had any experience with this? Yeah, I don't know.
The only person I know that's doing that is Tom Gros, who is a reef biologist at he's like a PhD in one of the universities out east, and they are using 12-volt charge in the water to regrow coral. And I don't know if it's related at all, but they don't even know how it works. But they have found by having this low voltage running through the water, and it's actually like an old, you might say, box spring or metal grate, the coral actually grow faster, better through the charged water. So, but again, there are a lot of terms that we need to be more specific in defining what we mean sometimes. But that's so what cool. I know.
So when I think of the redox cross, that's going to be the bottom right corner of the redox cross. That is so fascinating. And that's the place where very few of us have our gardens. And that's why Elaine Ingham's classic secession chart just focuses on the pH, not the EH swing. All right. So next question. I have a couple fruit trees and they look unhealthy. Everyone tells me I need to treat them with fungicides. Is there any treatments or alternative perspectives I could use to treat peach leaf curl? It's okay if no one has an answer. I've done it.
I can do it.
Okay.
I can do it.
It'd be cool. We'll get different.
And I'm not being funny here. Number one is a conversation with the tree and a connection with the tree and with the ecosystem around it. And some people might get answers. So not to go very kumbaya here, I do that quite a lot. And answers come, not necessarily in a very magic way, but it is a very magic way. And two, you know, being a student of permaculture, we learned that everything is in the soil and everything is connected to the soil, so that the solution will come to from working with the soil and healing the soil, for sure. And then looking at other more natural, for example, from Korean natural farming. I was actually just reading from Matt's book again, just pitching Matt here like to the maximum. Reading from Matt's book on certain foliar sprays that can actually, you know, have the plant, I like to call it, breathe in, you know, the medicine. My partner, Anna Maria, she's also here. She's an herbalist, and she's really looking right now. We've been looking a lot into, you know, she's been an herbalist for people and now for the animals. And we've been, you know, since we discovered these concepts of Korean natural farming, which actually my people from Romania, from where I'm from, we've been doing ferments and spraying, you know, plants, you know, in our culture before I've heard about the Korean natural farming. But we're looking at that, like herbalism for plants, and it's just amazing. So just, we trademark that, okay? So nobody steal that, okay? You know, that's where I wanted to say. You're looking at treating the soil right, and then you're looking at what are the best medicines for that tree to get in the form of a foliar spray. And sometimes it could be something as simple as a vermicompost tea. I'm a very vermicompost tea type of guy, to bring health. It's kind of like us humans, you know, just I don't know, some people think that vitamin C takes care of everything, but just, you know, just go into the core, improving the overall immunity and all that. And I'm gonna pass the baton from here.
Before you jump in, Matt.
Yeah,
thanks, Lucian. And you know, it's not a kumbaya thing, you know, talking to the tree. Essentially, that is the first principle of permaculture, isn't it? To observe and interact. You're in conversation. That is the conversation with, I think we lost Daniel, didn't we?
Yeah, where did he go?
Never mind. He'll come back, I'm sure.
Okay.
So yeah, it is the conversation. That is the first principle of permaculture design. And what I'd like to add, as well as the obvious, what you said about focusing on the soil, first thing that you go to as well, but to also look at how is the tree in relationship to its context and its community. Does the tree have a community, or is it alone? You know, and I'm not trying to be anthropomorphic with this. It's, you know, the community of life of which we are part. And is the tree in a habitat, or is it stuck out by itself trying to fend for itself? And, you know, all of the interactions that happen if the tree is in a community and has other species which can be helping to take care of it, both underground and surrounding it as well.
Awesome. And it's so true.
I think a lot of it has to do with soil biology also. And I've been learning from a soil pathologist, who is a great guy to meet. And he said, I mean, paraphrasing here, but he said in this long conversation we had, if you do not have livestock in your system, within 3 to 5 years, you will get disease and you will have pathogens in your soil that you will never get rid of. And he said the gut organisms from manure are what create the biological systems in the soil. And that's what basically the good pathogens, the bad pathogens, all those kinds of things. And it was really amazing because we were having citrus issues in Haiti, of all places, and they were keeping all the animals out of the citrus of course, for many good reasons. But anyway, the fact was that they got I forget what the disease was with there, but it really did take out all the trees. And I asked him about that, and he said, absolutely, you got to have manure or animals in your system in order to have good biology. And then, of course, like Morag was saying, and Lucian was saying too, is kind of more, what is the context? Where is it? Is it alone? And there is a density issue also with trees and other plants. It's not just one, right? Pollination and things like that. And many times we're putting these plants in places where, yeah, they've never existed, ever. And obviously there's a reason that they're not showing up there, and we bring these plants in and they have to struggle because they have to create the mycelial network that maybe wasn't there. It was only a minor availability of nutrients for them, and they have to develop that over time. And that's very difficult for plants. It's very stressful. But the curl is probably a symptom, of course. And you can, through many photographs on the internet, of course, and things like that. Peach curl, I've heard of that before. And peaches are tough, having done them. But I think it's all about the soil biology, the water, all of that, and then what does the plant want?
May I say something? Thank you for that, Daniel. I wanted to say that we do have a saying in my culture where I come from. It's actually very specific to the village, that you just can't have apples without sheep. So I don't know if it translates well or not, but this is how it goes. And then actually in my partner's culture, Anna Maria, Greek culture from the island, you can have olives without goats. So we looked into this. What does that mean, right? And the goats basically are pruning the olive trees every year. They're pruning them. They jump in the tree, they prune the tree. Now, I still can't figure out the sheep and the apples in my culture, but I'm still, now that you said, gut bacteria going into that. So, and this is so beautiful. Let's teach a course together, like so complimentary, amazing. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to throw in there
Sure.
with the animals, it doesn't necessarily even have to be, like sheep or goats or cows. My garden is full of things like kangaroos and wallabies and bandicoots and echidnas, and they're all doing their things. And I notice in the morning, there's like a bandicoot's been burrowing around and opening up the soil, and a kangaroo's gone along and trimmed the sweet potatoes and so on. And there's this beautiful relationship that's forming there. And I can see the garden flourishing as a result of this. And it could also be, again, with this process that you're mentioning, Daniel. Lucian, I think it's great, like this complementary knowledge coming together. It's like piecing together these snippets and ideas that just help to make greater sense of it all.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So so I treated it within like 2 weeks, because the thing is, any kind of fungal disease, any kind of fungal break-in is breaking the cuticle of the leaf. It's breaking in through that first layer of the first defense layer, which is calcium, boron, and silicon. Straight up. That's what the cell walls are made of. And when calcium and silicon get to optimal levels, they create the shielding on the leaf surface, and it looks like gloss. Like when things are super healthy, you're like, wow, look at that shine. That's that glossy layer. It's actually like a waxy layer. So what I did was I took EM and effective microbes, EM1, you could find it online, or you can make your own. Someone in your bioregion probably is already doing this. And I put in, okay, so I'm about to reveal something. Take notes if you're gonna take notes. So I took an ocean spray, like cranberry style, jug, just like your juice jug. I forget what it was. I think it was like pink lemonade or something. But the ocean spray, the old school ocean spray kind of shape, that's squarish shape. I've had mine turn into circles and explode. I like fermentation. And so I would put EM in there with manure. So I would get powdered manure, so there'd be a lot of surface area. You can do this with tons of different things. You can granulate stuff too, but you're going to give the EM a supercharge with giving it nitrogen, and then you're going to give it different things. And what you're essentially doing is transforming the nitrogen into amino acids, but you're also having them embody all the minerals you put in. So I put kelp in there, and then I put biochar in there, and then I've even okay, so this is what I did at the time. This is all food grade material. It's all food based, but there's a combination that my friend Richard Kamalwithan came up with. I can't tell you what because it's his formula, but I've gotten it into my eyes. It's edible. It's safe. And so it breaks. It's a surfactant that's natural. It's an organic surfactant.
Oh, wow.
So it breaks the surface tension. You know what I'm talking about, Daniel. You were the first person to talk about breaking surface tension years ago. And so they're breaking the surface tension. And so it delivers that EM and the microbes. And the microbes primarily in EM are endophytes. So when they have this unbroken connection, there's no surface tension. They're bringing everything they're carrying directly into the plant. And the ones that aren't endophytes get zapped by the plant and then what happens when a plant zaps a microbe that enters it? I mean, it uses redox. It's reactive oxygen. That's how it zaps it, but it releases all the nutrition in it. So you're essentially with compost teas, with foliar sprays, if you deliver it right, if you got plants working properly and the biology that you're supplying is the proper biology, they go into the plant sorts them, goes, oh, wow, you're the endophytes. All endophytes fix nitrogen. All of them do. And these ones we're talking about trigger immunological defenses, which actually strengthen cell wall, because it's like, hey, we need to strengthen our cell walls. We need to double up on this. And so I did that twice. And what happened was the leaves that were affected literally shriveled up and died. And then new leaves grew and they didn't have anything on them and nothing came back. And it was a process. And the tree was a really old tree. It's probably like many of the places that we take over that you maybe, it's like your site. When you've got this old peach tree, it's got a big crack down the middle. It's got a broken branch that's got deeply infected. There's all this stuff and it's got some fungal pathogens going on and you need to bring it back. And that's what I did. So it's totally possible. And the way I did it was basically shortcutting, but the same exact route that all the other folks here were just discussing. Because if it's in the soil, it'll come in through the roots. The EM microbes, they have cousins or themselves already in the soil, in compost, or you know what I mean? So you're gonna arrive at the final destination a lot of different ways in permaculture. Some of them take longer than others. Some of them we're discovering new pathways all the time. I mean, that was the first time I dealt with peach leaf curl, and I'll tell you, when I broke the surface tension on the biochar that I put in the mix for 3 days, and it blew up like a balloon, it ate the biochar. So there new discoveries are happening all the time. You're not supposed to be able to eat biochar, right? Microbes, what are you doing? But it's because they broke the surface charge, right? They were able to touch it. So anyway, I could go on forever about this. I love this kind of stuff. So next question. This is such a great question. Someone is calling from an iPhone. Thank you for calling in. And so this question is a great one. I hope that you're still here and with us. And it's so awesome that they're just listening, right? How do we convince the neat, clean, cookie cutter reality market to understand the need for a little mess? Who wants to start?
Wow. Well, the word tidy comes in a lot when I start working with people. They like it to be tidy. And that's from gardening. That's from everything. You know, I mean, there are magazine pictures of what gardens should look like, which are absolute chaos when it comes to natural systems. You know, that's everything in a straight line, you know, corners, and we need bare soil and all those kinds of things. But I think part of it is not using vernacular like it's a mess. It's not a mess. It's actually the natural order that nature works. And if you walk into a forest, you're going to call that a mess. You know, obviously you're making somewhat a mistake. On the other hand, I have to say, there's no reason that things have to be chaotic and they can be orderly and still be organic and still be ecologically sound, right? It's when you force geometry, let's just say, or you force a system on plants, animals, or whatever, that then you create chaos. They will make their own order, and you can work with the plants and help them, give them space and place to move. But I think like when we're working in certain slopes and things are on terraces and things are linear, I mean, I'm a patch guy. If you look at my books and everything, I'm a polyculture. You know, it's like, let's just throw this stuff on the wall and see what happens here. And we're creating these shapes, and all of a sudden I'm forced into a linear pattern. But what we learned, of course, is it's absolutely fine. It's just that the energy is going sideways, you might say, instead of going like a spider. And so we're just, and that's one of my favorite sayings. So we're just following the energy, follow the water, follow the energy, follow the gravity. Where is that going? And use that as your design. And the last thing I'll say is, and when we follow the contour, which of course we do, shout out to Ross Martin, who's down here on my right side of my screen in the brown plaid. He's one of our United designers, by the way. Very cool dude. But when we follow the contours and we follow the shapes and the energy, the natural design is the most beautiful design on there. Everybody says it too. It's like, wow, I didn't know those curves were even there. I didn't even know that this was a path, right? And all the time the clients are going, this is amazing. I mean, this just happens. And I said, well, not quite just happens, but it's already there. You know, we just follow it and it basically makes the design for us, which is, I think, the way to go. So that's my version of tidy versus messy versus any, there's no way. It's like all those terms, right? There's no such thing as throwing anything away. Every away is somebody else's place. So every away is here for someone else. And the same thing with that. It's, I think with some clients, it's basically their preference and their tolerance for what they pursue, what they've been trained aesthetically to tolerate, right? And in a sense, they just need to be slightly woke up to what actual beauty is and not the aesthetic they've been trained to appreciate in modern culture.
Absolutely. Morag, do you want to add?
I was just going to add just a tiny little bit. And I think, you know, absolutely, you know, nature's aesthetic is beautiful, and we're often finding ourselves in a state of awe, you know, if you enter into a natural space and feel that. Bringing that back into as kind of a very urban or suburban context. So I think what I try and communicate often is that there is a certain aesthetic that, you know, whatever it is that you choose or you feel fits within that context, you can apply a permaculture lens to that, being about creating the connectedness. And so rather than focusing on the bits, focusing on the relationships, and you can create that flow and connectedness on a whole variety of different aesthetics. And so it doesn't have to look in one particular way to be called a permaculture. Like, for example, just having a herb spiral doesn't make it permaculture. In fact, you could have permacultures without ever having a herb spiral. You know, it's not about a particular aesthetic. It's about thinking through how things connect. And I think if we focus on that, and that being, you know, the connections with the soil, connections with the community of plants, connections with you as the gardener, connections with the community that are interacting with that. And I think that can be applied to any different context.
May I?
Yeah.
I've never built an herb spiral. So, you know, I've seen it built. I've never done it. I wanted to say this. I've worked for this amazing place that is just an example of what's possible with regenerative agriculture in urban suburban space, with the Ecology Center in San Juan Capistrano, Southern California. Evan Marks was my first mentor and teacher. And, you know, he always said, you know, people have to drink the Kool-Aid. So that stuck with me. You know, how do you get people to you know, be okay with messy? You have to have them experience. So as a designer, the first place I've ever really designed up was my own place. And when people will call or they wanted to know more about my services or my classes or anything, I said, go in front of my house. And then as I built spaces for people, I had people go to different houses, right, to see, and different spaces to see. And it's the same that we're doing right now with our third farm. People come and drink the Kool-Aid. There's nothing else. Like they're open. They're open. Do it. Messy. Throw it. Call Daniel to just throw things at it and just make it happen. It's gonna look beautiful. Yeah, I'm a very ecological succession kind of teacher. That's like my number one way of teaching permaculture, that things take time and we can speed them up, right, with permaculture. So have some patience, meditate in your garden. Yes, it's really beautiful. And I'd like to say one more thing. Sometimes, this is what's so beautiful about what Daniel does, that he has such a big group of people that he could have a sense of like, maybe I'm not going to be able to work so well with this client. John, Michael, Ross, here's somebody that fits so well with your personality and your way of being. And I always ask people, what's your horoscope? Oh, you're whatever, you know, I can't work with you. Sorry, I'm busy. Here's somebody else's phone number, really direct. So thank you for letting me add that to it.
Well, I'm probably the messiest here. And I can't hide it. I mean, the evidence is online. You can look up the videos. You can see my past. I would just make seed, like I would fill jars this big and with mixed seeds of like over a dozen like different kinds. And then within those kinds, I would have different varieties. And I would just go throw it out there. And I can tell you that people didn't get it. They just didn't get it until it was going like hard. And then when it was gained this kind of momentum, and it, you know what it is? When we look at the woods, it doesn't feel messy to us naturally. It feels natural. But in that, it's kind of like when I cut my hair too short, there's this terrible awkward stage in between normal matte hair and like my childhood haircut, which was the same haircut for 15 years. I went to Mike the barber. So anyway, we'll leave the trauma behind. But my point is that when you get to a certain flywheel of natural momentum and expression, the designs that you create, no matter, you know, your flavor of design, your flair, your maybe you're doing keyline, maybe it's just pure on contour. It doesn't matter. There's a certain level of maturity that comes, and then you see the design, and then you see nature, and there's this unbelievable overlap and synergy, and you're like, oh. And then that's us recognizing that interplay between ourselves and nature. And it's us hearing what those plants are saying, what that soil is saying, and those microbes are saying. So I've done it. My wife has told me, this is messy. Why can't you do things that are neat? This time we're going to do it neat, right, honey? Like, yes, I know this. And maybe, you know, there's some childhood things that I'm just fighting against, but I would say that if you want to make it messy, go and make it messy, and just follow design, because your design, as you trim and chop and drop, it will just mature and reveal, and the plants are going to establish their areas. Your perennials will establish, your trees will declare their dominance over their, you know, their domain, and it will emerge. And so time, again, is the mediator between all the different styles and methods. I think of Eric Olson as kind of like my opposite. My wife always says, "Why you got to make it like Eric Olson this time, right?" It's like you know, like 3 giant things of wood chips. And we put the wood, we design everything, right? Because it's California, so you got to protect the soil. So you put everything under wood chips. And so it's all designed, it's all protected, and it literally is clean. And it saves tons of water. So that's how we were going to do it. I think we're going to do that in the front yard here, because we need to build a ton of soil. So So any way you kind of dive into this, you kind of like, you're like a cat and you land on your feet, even if it's a little awkward on the way down. Okay, so here's a very specific question. Does anyone know who we could contact in Knoxville, Tennessee to help us start permaculture in our 20 acres of land covered now with trees and vegetation? Daniel, maybe you know someone in that area.
You know, okay, two companies also I think I always find with suggesting other people, but one of the organizations that has been very helpful to our designers, they're called Thrive Lot. And they are like the Airbnb of permaculture design. They are putting together network of designers all over the country in towns. And so Chase and Joshua, Ross might know a couple of the other guys. So they are basically the, what do you call that? They do the marketing, right? And then they basically, and it's a very good program. They have an online design service, all that kind of stuff too, which of course is us designers, we don't use it, but that's a really good organization that has people. Now, all the other thing else would say too is don't just think of, is it Knoxville? Don't just think Knoxville, think regional. Think of the state, think of the ecosystem you're in. Look for somebody that's understanding and in that area, not so much geographically or politically, but ecologically. Where's a designer around there that's been doing the work? Now, some people are working local. The larger the land bases are, like I work for Thrive Lot also, when they have a very large homestead, it's 50, 160 acres or something. And that's of course my whole traveling thing. And then I get my local designers and we work there too. But if you have that kind of property, look around, check out Thrive Lot, look for the designers, but also know that if you have the opportunity to come and stay on your land and be there for a while, that's really important. And that's one of the golden things with us is that we go there and we stay there for the site assessment. We do most of our work within a week or two, and then we leave and go do design and concepting and things like that. But you really need to have your property available to somebody for a pretty long period of time, depending on how long they've been designing.
Morag, do you want to add to that?
No, I think Daniel covered that quite, particularly seeing it was an American question.
Well, you've got students everywhere too, I don't know. Lucian?
It's incredible to me that I get so many of these questions. A lot of my students are asking me, hey, do you know anybody we can connect with there? So I guess I'm going to have to really look into this.
Okay.
Exactly for, Tennessee. A lot of people are moving there. So, yeah.
The other I'll just mention too is, sorry, Matt, I get asked all the time, like I'll go work in Nebraska and somebody will say, well, you're not from here. And I'm like, no, I'm not, but I'm from this continent and it's not about here. It's basically about the plants and the system. So pushing a little bit more in the United Designer stuff, my favorite job is to go somewhere where I absolutely know nothing, right? Never been there, don't know anything. And I use the process, right? We have a design process. We have questions, sheets of questions, 8-page data table, all sorts of information. And at which point then I get other people to help me that are from the area or Neo Bertrando or Joshua in Florida or Ross is like all over the place, but he's in in New York, right? So I have other people help me, but the best fun is to go somewhere and be absolutely clueless, knowing ecological systems, knowing pathology or plants and how they work and how the soil works, and doing the discovery of, oh, wow, look what's here, look what's there. This is the soil type, this is the structure, these are the contours, what's the weather like? That's just like amazing journey to go on. And so in that sense, it's not somebody who's local so much, we'll get to that, but you want somebody who has a really good design process that understands and not going to enforce or basically place a system on the land that doesn't belong there, or is basically just one of, they just use the 30 plants that everybody uses that's in the nurseries, that's available. But I really think it's a matter of finding a good designer. And then it's, of course, then it's about the cost and locality and the convenience of being able to get somebody there to work with you.
I
He's
think
in
what
New
you
York
just
right
said
now.
was, I'd just like to jump in, Matt, because there is something that I'd like to say
Okay,
about
yeah.
this, that, you know, you could choose to have a designer, or you can, what I often encourage people to do is to, you know, through the whole permaculture design course, wherever you take it, is about enabling you to be the designer yourself. That is the point. And so through the, say, for example, through the course that I run, I'm talking about this because I know what's in it and it makes sense to me. So we actually go, you know, it's step by step, and it's your property that you're designing. So we show you how to go through and get all the site analysis, how to find that information, how to map that information, how to look for the flows, how to connect with your local community. So it's not just, you know, an abstract course that of some random site. It is actually about your place and developing up the plot. And, you know, honestly, the designs that people are doing who've not had any background before, being guided through the process of a permaculture design course in this spacious way, and having design studios to get feedback and to hear what other people are doing, produces brilliant work. And what it does too, it gives you the opportunity then to feel like you're in control of the design process. And you can then, you know, like bring in experts, designers as well, to amplify your work, to check on your work, maybe to give you further information, but you have the sense that you know what you're doing. You know, it's really hard when you feel out of control and like, oh, this is overwhelming. So I think that's the benefit of a permaculture design course, where you focus on your own property in the design realm. It's a lot of energy that you put into design courses, so why not make it your own place that you're doing?
Absolutely. Lucian, do you want to add it?
I really love, and what you just said, really love, and just yes, 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 yes. That's it.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of one of my courses right now, and this is something I think about a lot. And you know what? I'll start with this. The power of the PDC is testified when we show that we can just take anyone who's never had design experience, show them the process, walk them through it, and then we get an incredible product. That is so important. As a project-based educator, I'm from that generation of people who went through to get their master's degree and in education and taught other teachers, project-based education and student-centered education. So the part where you're designing your own site is so incredibly important, but you must do it. So in my course, it's just like Morags, where it's like your teaching course, where it's a community. No one ever gets kicked out, because we are constantly learning and we're constantly growing together. And the questions you have 2 years in to learning permaculture are so valuable to the people who are only 1 year in. The answers are valuable, no doubt, but the question itself reveals the problems they will face, reveals the kind of thinking that they will have. It reveals their critical thinking, which is the highest level of cognition, if you think about Bloom's taxonomy. And so I really value going through all the different levels of cognition. And so not just the novel creation, which is the design, but physically, in reality, creating it so that you hit all those problems, and we go through those problems together, and we develop answers that are unique to you, unique to your situation, unique to the climate and bioregion that you're in. So yeah, so that's what I do, because I'm just a product of my generation of teachers, and we're all project-based. I actually didn't even have physical books when I was teaching. It was all laptop-based, and I had to create all the curriculum from scratch. So that's why I started making books and doing all this stuff online, because I was already doing it. All right, so this next question, I'm going to find Daniel again. This next question is a really good one. It's the second time it's shown up in the mix, and I'll start off with one, and then and I'll send it around. Green gold. was the documentary that really got me excited and inspired, and realizing that, hey, we've got this. We just gotta focus and take the right steps, and we can fix this big problem. We can fix this world and make it so that it is wild and beautiful and regenerative again. And so Green Gold, the John D. Liu documentary, is amazing. The question is, I don't think I even said it, is what film recommendations do you have?
Wow. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Dan. I put a couple of responses into the chat. One saying anything from Happen Films is wonderful. You know, they just do brilliant permaculture films. I think, you know, check them out. And then, you know, there's you know, a whole lot of permaculture YouTube that's out there now as well, which is from all different scales, all different contexts, and, you know, dive into the world of that. One thing I did mention as well in the chat is that part of the permaculture educators program that I run, we have a film club within that. And we films are found by the community and put up, and then we watch them, and then we come together and we explore the ideas together. It's been such a great idea that we're actually opening this up just as a global community permaculture film club. And that's going to be starting next month. So watch out in the social media world. And I also did respond in the film in response to that question that I think, yes, making a list is good. There's lots of lists all over the place, but I will put a list of my favorite ones into a blog post. So if you want to subscribe over there, I put that into ourpermaculturelife.com, and then you can dive in there and download. And if you subscribe there too, you'll also get notification of when film clubs happen. So that started next month, and I'm really excited about it because I think it's a great way to open conversations and to dive into things and to find out what experience different people have and to share them. So it's this kind of great pollination possibilities that happen around a film club.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, I used to have, back in the DVD days, remember those? I'm sure they're still around. I used to have all of my, and then I also converted all the VHS ones that I had from Molasses and other people to that too. Had a nice packet for the PDCs and would show these obscure, not even related to permaculture, but very good, you know, instructional type things. Got home from a PDC one year and they weren't in my stuff. And it's like, okay, that's all gone. I'm not going to have that again. So I had to change that. But I get recommendations all the time from people that see, oh, you should go see this, you know, One Small Farm, this, that, and that was really good. And I do like those as an inspirational, and I think they're really great. The hard part with those is it's like documentary photography. And I used to be a commercial photographer, food photographer for many years. And I taught documentary photography, is that the agency that's in the film, the agency that's there is a lot missing that's not there. When you watch these, the background, the history, other things that went on, whether it's Gabe Brown's stuff, you know, other soil things, is that there is so much more to those stories that they can't put in, right? And other things, and it's not like it's, you know, America's, what is it, redo your house thing or next, you know, they're not commercial and they're supposed to be very instructional. So I would say read as much as you can. Watching all those shows is great. You know, when I want to know something, I went on YouTube and there's 5,000 tomato videos on there, and then you kind of figure out your favorite people that you have. But I like those, as Morag is saying, as a conversational model to get people talking, but I've never really found any of them to be practical application to where I'm at. You know, Joel Salatin's great. All of his stuff is down there, and you know what he does and how that works, and people working with chickens. But now I'm in Minnesota. I got to talk to Minnesota chicken people. You know, we need a Minnesota chicken movie.
Yeah, and
I'm
just
sorry.
Lucian, go.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to say that's so amazing. The analogy with 5,000 people on the tomatoes just like killed me. I wanted to share I play a lot of movies for people, Morag said earlier, bring people in to watch videos and all that. I've done that in the past. And the most impactful movie I have ever shown that has changed people's lives, like I saw them, like their eyes, their mind, the aura, then they took all my courses and everybody else's courses, was Dirt, the movie.
Yes.
Just blew people's eye, and I love to watch it every time. Just watch it over and over. And it is a very mind-opening with amazing, beautiful metaphors in there. And then to get back to the 5,000 tomato people, I really, I'm into farming. I'm into really developing this beautiful village. So if you're here and you're hearing this for the first time, my intention, our vision together as partners, we are, Anna Maria and I, we are building a village, not just a farm, but just a village. And we have a lot of acres. Anyway, so I like to follow Richard Perkins, for example. That's, so if you are to, what's your favorite movies? What's a good movie for inspiration? What is it that you like to do? Urban permaculture, suburban permaculture, farming permaculture, maybe watch a bunch of them and then kind of like stick with that. Find these people. Some of these people are just amazing on YouTube. And yes, all the 5,000 people talking about tomatoes. I'm going to make a tomato video this summer.
All right. So I just want to say one thing about Gabe Brown. He does have full transparency in the book, right? So it's important that like we do read the books, and like Gabe is fully, I mean, he tells his full story in his book. He talks about using Roundup. He talks about still using Roundup. The transparency is there. And you can agree with them or disagree with them. You know what I mean? That's a separate issue. But it just goes to show that these movies do paint this idealistic picture sometimes of some of these situations. But also that, Gabe's doing his best as well. He's just trying to make sure we become aware of soil and help the ranchers and some of these farmers transition. And I feel like he's like a stepping stone in the right direction. So I would just add that. But all right. So what was the other thing I wanted to add? Dirt was one of those movies that for me, I feel like that was like 2011, 12 or something. That was on like Netflix, and I watched that, and it was like one of those galvanizing movies for me. Right after that, I watched Symphony of the Soil, and that's when I fell in love with Dr. Lane Ingham. And it was like a year later that I got to start working with her. And so those movies in that time period just have, there's such richness there. So I would say, yeah, Dirt, Symphony of the Soil, Green Gold, even the Jeff Lawton Greening the Desert. Like those are solid. Those are really, really, really good. There's different versions. You might have to find the one that says like the full version to get all the different iterations of it in there. But these videos, they're amazing. I think the other one that's just a classic is the Bill Mollison at the Tucson Swales. You guys have all seen that, right? If you haven't seen that, it is so amazing. I went there because of that video. And I know Jeff Lawton went there because of that video, and many others too. So this next question is a really good one. I know that a lot of people feel this way. Can one even do permaculture in pots?
It's a question I get asked a lot. And you go ahead, Daniel, and I'll follow on.
I'm just saying, first of all, it's not a verb. You don't do permaculture. I want to permaculture my farm. It's not a verb. It's a system of thinking. It's a way of making decisions and things like that. And raised beds, pots, wine casks, shipping containers, you name it. I've grown. It's whatever you got a place to put soil in to do that. So I would say absolutely. Now, of course, there's a little more specificity as far as what's growing out of that pot and what you're going to do with it. But yeah.
Awesome.
I think it's all a notion of scale, another principle of permaculture, and it's finding that cycle, between you and your garden and the waste stream and the context around and what's happening down the street. How can you interact with that so that you're applying that permaculture thinking to your life, and your smaller garden is fitting within that system. What I also try and encourage people to do when they're thinking of doing something in a pot is to pick the biggest possible pot that you can, so that there's more possibility for life to be able to happen in that pot, so that it's not just dirt, not just dirt holding up the plant and you feeding it. You can create some kind of living system within that pot, and that you have enough space to create a community of plants in that pot as well. If you incorporate perennials, but there is also a different strategy. You end up using a lot more, like clipping greens or smaller scale plants. So it's really a matter of scale and applying it differently. And it's not to say that you can't apply permaculture thinking to your balcony. I was just writing in the chat there. Someone mentioned Natalie Toma, a brilliant permaculture designer who works with refugees throughout East Africa, and I visited her apartment in Nairobi, and it was like 4th or 5th floor, brilliant permaculture farm on all of her little balconies. She had chickens, and she was growing insects to feed her chickens inside, and then she had a spirulina tank, and she was saving seeds, and she had trellises growing over and collecting food scraps from neighbors. Just wonderful. That is a permaculture balcony farm. And so I think it is very much about our way of thinking rather than what it is. It's not it's thingifying permaculture as well, gets it stuck. Whereas when we stay in the thinking and the process and the approach to building the relationships and the connections is where we constantly stay open to the possibility of more connections and more ways of adapting and changing and growing and helping it to thrive and come alive.
Absolutely. Lucian, do you want to add?
Just do it.
So from a technical aspect, by the way, if you have small pots, the soil temperature, of course, is going to be more the ambient temperature, and those pots are going to be affected by temperature change within, like it's like a small aquarium of fish or whatever. And like Morag was saying, the bigger the pot, the better, because now you have a soil community, not just one basically root-bound root ball in a pot that you're trying to keep from falling over. You can have a lot of different things growing. My favorite pot to grow in basically was those wine casks cut in half. And then I would use, from Home Depot, they have those furniture moving dollies. And so I just had and if you can carry it, it's too small. But basically, let's just say, if you have to roll it around on a dolly, now you got a good size, right? To work it. And so I would just move these around wherever I needed to have them. And that was really great.
And the same sort of size of, it's what we're doing a lot within the refugee settlements where there's not that much space and the soil is atrocious. Creating sack gardens in the food bags that are delivered there, and creating these movable, well, they're not really that movable, like you're saying, once they've filled them up, and then they can grow all these kind of vegetables out the side and get much more vegetables in a smaller space using the stuff that they have. And it's applicable there too.
I think it's a great practice with soil, with how to work with soil, because you have a little bit more things to do to a pot than if you did it in the garden. At least that's how I see it. That you'd have to really, really love that soil and feed it and pray to it. Praise the soil. This is the motto of my permaculture courses.
I love that.
If you can grow in the soil,
Do that.
in the ground, then that is always the best. One of the things that I do find a little bit frustrating is that I see many of the new vegetable gardens popping up all over the place is they're basically just a whole lot of pots, highly raised beds and lots of pots, and the soil's heating up. I live in the subtropics, so it's just kind of great. Put it in the soil, put it in the ground, enliven the soil, enrich the soil, and that will be the most abundant and easy way to get the garden happening. If you don't have access to the soil, or there's something in the soil that means you can't grow there, then, you know, the pots becomes the option. But I always encourage people first, you know, natural farming and natural growing and natural gardening in the soil, so the roots can make their own life. You know, we know now that, you know, this bounded space within a pot constrains life so much, when we know really what is going on underneath this in the soil, or know partially what's going on in the soil. Just imagine there is no possibility for that in the pot. There's a fraction of a possibility, and that's what you try and encourage, but it's going to be so much more. And the nutrient density of the food that you're eating, and the quality of the food, the aliveness of the food that you're eating, is going to be so much more if it's come from the living soil. So if it's possible, put it in the ground is what I'm saying, simply.
Yeah, that flywheel of natural expression has a hard time starting with, you know, so few pinpoints of interaction. And so, and then having the influences, the environmental influences, be opposite of what it is traditionally. I mean, traditional soil is with the other soil. And so that it's like resilient against the heat and the cold to a large degree. And so the fluctuations of the air temperature is just like, that's just not normal. So, though I would flip the problem and the question in a weird way, maybe for some, but I would flip it to houseplants, because zone 0, you're going to want houseplants more and more. People are going to want houseplants because the air quality in their regions becoming more aware of this. And the houseplant issue is terrible. Their soil that you get houseplants in is atrocious. Half the time it's like just peat. And that's a crime on its own. And then the plants don't last long. They're root bound. They're fed sometimes nicotinide like toxins, so they kill pollinators. There's so much like layer to the problem there that it's like, yes, permaculture thinking can come in and save the day in that situation too. So this idea of it, can you do it in pots? In my mind, I'm like, well, we better. Because we're damaging ourselves, we're damaging our pollinators when we're bringing in plants that are filled with toxins in their soil, because those things gas off. How do they detox, right? That's volatilization. So, and then one of the questions that came up twice was, what does EM stand for? That's just effective microbes. And that's primarily yeasts, bacteria. If you've got an older set of information, it's Actinomycetes. They got genetically, you know, read. We did the DNA test on that, and that's what that changed. But and then purple non-sulfur bacteria, as well as lactic acid bacteria. And it's a consortium of those 4 main microbes, and mostly bacteria, that makes EM effective. But those things you can generate on your own in a variety of ways. All right, so question, this is a good one. Is blackstrap molasses good or bad for our compost and soil? Kind of like a yesterday question, but we can handle it here.
I mean, that's the only time I've used that is for compost tea myself. Do people use it as a soil amendment also?
I've seen it twice on here that people are like, is molasses, they said molasses is good for animal digestion. I don't understand why it isn't good for compost. I can definitely field this one really quick if you guys want. All right, so the molasses issue is about quantity. You're feeding them carbohydrates, so you need them to have carbohydrates to feed. You know, it's a great fuel source, but too much causes your pile or your tea or your soil to develop an overabundance of bacteria, because it's a simple sugar, so the bacteria just goes through the roof. And then it outcompetes the fungi, and then you've got an imbalanced situation, and soil and plants do not like imbalance. So it's not a good or bad thing. It's just about a proper placement for it. All right.
Okay. If I could ask a question beyond that, Matt? So what
Yeah.
you're saying is, because we know there's a fungal ecology and there's a bacterial ecology. So prairies, places like that, grasses are more of a bacterial ecology. Forests, and depending on what you're growing in a garden, is either fungal or a combination of fungal and bacterial ecology. But if you add the molasses, you're really feeding the bacteria.
Right. And if you
And
go too
giving them
far,
enough.
you end up actually favoring the microbes that kill fungi. These are the actinobacteria. This is the soil that smells like a little bit like ammonia when you cut it. It sometimes has that grayish white stuff in it. That's when you've gone too alkaline and oxidized, and then you basically are in a situation where you need to like break that pattern. That's what compost is for. I'm looking for the next question here. Everyone, please feel free to add your questions. I think we're coming to the time where it's going to be one more question, and then we're going to do the giveaway, unless the panelists would like to go a little bit longer. We've been here almost an hour and a half now.
Wow.
Really appreciate you all. All right, looks like we really got a lot of these questions. What's the organization he was just talking about? I missed the name. Someone clarified. All right, here we go. We have helpers now. All right, I think we really answered the questions.
There is one towards the end.
You want to read it?
Yeah, the question is, can glyphosate be fixed with loads of organic matter, as Jeff Lawton suggests? I trust him, but would like to hear the panel's views, please. So I wanted to start this, actually. During my one of my master's programs that I took in sustainable development, I have actually encountered a lot of research on the process of decomposition actually decomposing radioactivity. And that just, I could not believe it. So it was a study from Chernobyl that was showing how basically the forest around the nuclear disaster was coming back to life, and they were looking for answers. What's happening? And of course, the answer was the life in the soil was through its activity breaking down. So I never followed up until a decade later. Oh wow, I went to school a long time ago. So I'm finding quite a lot of those, and maybe I should have a podcast and a YouTube and all that. I do Instagram a lot. If you want to see actually an inspiring film on permaculture, just go to all my videos on Instagram or Facebook and see a movie. Really, how I went from growing in the pot to having 100+ acres farm with permaculture. So definitely, the answer is definitely, there's definitely a way where you would keep on diminishing the I don't know if I should call it the power or the strength of this chemical, keep on breaking it down. And there's definitely ways you can do it. Again, you can find it in Matt's book, Regenerative Soil, where he definitely talks about different type of powerful and or in the courses of any of the 3 panelists here or video. So the answer is yes, and there is a process. If anybody would like to take on that, what I can say, a big hint is that you can compost that material over and over again. This ties up so much into the yesterday's mother. I wanted to say something, but I wasn't there live for the mother compost of like, you can have all kinds of traces of chemicals from the past in the mother compost, and it's like just treating it and working it and breaking it until it's not glyphosate, for example, or until it's not that radioactive hurtful something molecules that can really hurt you. So I'll stop here.
All right.
I think that's a really great testament to nature's ability to heal. I think one thing that I'd just like to add to that, though, is that sometimes when we know that, I'm not saying us in this room, but societally, we know that nature can heal. So it almost gives the passage to continue to use the things which will damage. It's a little bit like, oh, okay, well, with solar energy, oh, we can still use as much energy. Really what we need to be doing is to be phasing that out, and then activating the soil life, which will be able to heal the damage that's been done.
It's pretty gnarly, actually. Oh, could go, Daniel, you go.
A comment so let's just say, as people do, that the soil is the digestive system of the planet. The organisms in the soil break down the organic compounds and organic material to the elements, right? We're talking off the periodic table, very basic elements and very simple compounds that the plants absorb again, right? I mean, they're looking for those mineral traces, those micronutrients, all those kinds of things. And the organisms, the fauna, all of that, break down everything in decomposition so the plants can absorb it again. Great, perfect circle. Problem we have is when we have inorganic compounds, say like glyphosate, it breaks down, sure, 18 months. I think that's what I've heard. Compost for 18 months, horse manure especially is nasty, cow manure, whatever it is, because there's other things in there too. But it only breaks it down so far. And I don't know, again, the fact of this, but glyphosate is made from other things. And in the end, those things do not break down because there's no enzymes that will break them down because they're inorganic compounds. Now, it might be time, it might be oxidation, it might be a glacier, who knows, that before something like that will break down. So that's kind of the issue that I see. And the same thing ties into, on a very side note, humanure. If you're doing humanure and you're doing a composting toilet, that's your humanure. And one of the rule is nobody touches your compost toilet. If you're going in your garden, that's your humanure, not other people's, because of pathogens and also pharmaceuticals and those other things that pass through our bodies also make it into the soil. So yes, it can break down, but I've heard differing things about, okay, what does it break down to? And then are those things endocrine disruptors? Or are those, what's the other term like that? Hormonal disruptors, things like that. These chemicals can do things to animals and to plants and stuff too. So, and then part of it, I think Lucian was saying, was that, and also it kind of cycles through and you start to build up those compounds that aren't breaking down. They start to build up in your compost and in your soil because there's nothing to, make them go away.
May I say something
Does that sound
here?
good, Matt? Okay.
Yeah, I am going to share a few resources in the chat or as a response to this with some really beautiful things coming, and they are translated in English. They're not just in French for myself and the French speakers, including that. But there are some really beautiful, what I was alluding to, Daniel, is like, that mother compost, that it will break down those compounds and they'll get in specific forms that will not be harmful as the beginning of that, glyphosate. So there are, I do have some, and I will share that. And maybe I need to go over them so share this. But Matt is the soil genius here, so we're gonna hear something now.
Yeah. So what's been discovered is that either it's adapted, because this is what nature does, to digest glyphosate, or maybe glyphosate wasn't something that they could have just patented, and that they discovered it and then claimed that they patented it and then took something that was tiny and very rare and then just used it everywhere. We're not sure, because there's enzymes they've just discovered that are in Acromobacter and Acrobactrum anthropi. Notice the anthropi. And so that these degrade glyphosate within weeks. So if your compost has these in it, it can do that. But if it doesn't, it's going to follow circuitous pathways, right? And in that process, it releases formaldehyde. So again, you're like, wait a second, formaldehyde, preserves dead things, right? Uh-huh. And so it's a process of like, you unleash this and then it goes, now you have to conquer this demon, and you have to go through a few different stages. But sawdust or straw inoculated with pearl oyster and or turkey tail will decompose glyphosate, so you can work that into your soil. This is kind of crazy, but this shows where, like, how powerful the microbes are, but it also shows how many pathways there are. They figured out with dielectric barrier discharge that you literally can remove all these things within hours. So if they shock the soil, and this goes back to the redox cycle, if any of you guys have followed me on that tip, oxidation is the loss of energy, right? So it all goes hand in hand. And then for just in general, you would also be adding biochar, because biochar is like a magnet and can hold a lot of things. And it also supports the life that will stick around longer to do the services longer. So we do have ways to deal with this, but this is why I'm getting into my DNA sequencing. I have to keep it in the fridge. That's why I don't have it out. DNA sequencing kits must be kept refrigerated. I didn't know this until I got one. But this is why we're getting into this, so that we can actually say, oh, no. Your compost is looking great. You've got this species, this species, this species at this high enough level. You can be using that. And if you're like a soil company or a compost company or a remediation company, you're like, no, that's the golden compost. Okay. Keep that over there. And that's our mother compost now, because it has the species that degrades glyphosate, and we can literally market it that way because it's proven and we can test it and show it. That's where we're headed. That's where
you heard it first on Our Future 2022.
But I mean, we talk about how hopeful we are, right? I mean, look at everyone on the panel, everyone. We are happy, we're excited, and yeah, the news, is the news. And the state of the day is the state of the day. But we have a work in front of us that has a beautiful sunset at the end of it. And we're all hanging out, and it's a beautiful day. And we have that opportunity to be the heroes of the story, to help the people who are most affected, the people who are most injured by what's going on right now, be their own heroes and inspire the rest of us to be better. So this is a moment in time. So I really appreciate you all being here. I have some incredible giveaways to talk about today. So I'm going to be giving one of these away, either the reishi flow from cognitive function, or this is the shiitake reishi lion's tail turkey tail cordyceps mixture. And by the way, these are like really, really high in vitamin D. She is amazing and has invented a way to amplify the vitamin D in her tinctures. I can't give away how, but I know how she does it, and it's amazing. And this is cordyceps. So this is like liquid energy. If any of you are like, oh, my coffee doesn't work anymore, this doesn't work anymore, that doesn't work anymore, cordyceps tincture substitutes in your substitutes for your ATP. Your ATP is your cellular energy. This is literally cellular energy that you can just substitute in on those hard days. So cognitive function, Cassandra Posey, good friend of ours. She'll be speaking tomorrow on the panel with us. We're going to give away one of these as well and I couldn't hold 30 of these up. I'm going to give away 30 of these seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. So one tincture, 30 seeds. Today, this is, you joined us, you stayed. We're so happy that you came and you're here. I just want to announce, drum roll, silent drum roll. I don't want to. All right, Vanessa Van Alstine, are you there, Vanessa? You won, Vanessa! Congratulations. Congratulations. Let's see if she's here. Are you there, Vanessa?
I am. Hello.
Right center.
Did it!
Center on my screen.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I don't know if it's okay if I add you as a pin. I just did. Hello and thank you for being here. And you won. Congratulations. If you wouldn't mind emailing me at matt@thepermaculturestudent.com and give me your address, and I will send you a fun package. I'm going to throw in some stickers too. Got some fun stickers from me and some fun stickers from my friend Cassandra and Cognitive Function. Wow. Thank you all for being here. Morag, Daniel, Lucian. Knowing you all are out in the world gives me strength to do the things that I do. I think of you guys all the time. And even if we can't be together in person, you give me strength. And I hope that the other people that are watching this get strength from you too, because this is a crazy world that we live in. And it can distract us and pull us off the path and pull our eye off the mark. And man, we have such an incredible opportunity in front of us. Not only can we make the world more beautiful than it has been in living memory, but we can teach it to our children, to our communities. We can share the fruit and all of the benefits holistically from these choices with each other. The world that can exist is so amazingly hopeful and inspirational. I mean, if we just get a part of the way there in our lifetime or in the next 10 years, all of these problems that we're facing now are going to be gone. And we're going to be instead focusing on how to make it better and better and better. And everyone's mindset will be in such a different place. All right.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Lucian. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Matt, especially putting it all together. Nice to talk to everyone too.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you tomorrow and with more new videos. And yeah, keep growing, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.